I was gifted a family ring by my grandmother, but my parents are stopping me from proposing because my sister has to be married first. Just need to get this off my chest. My girlfriend's birthday is on Saturday and I plan on proposing to her. Our anniversary is 6 months from Saturday, April 29th, and I think that would be a great day for a wedding. When my grandma died, she left all kinds of jewelry to my mom. She always said if I wanted one of her rings to give to a woman in the future, she would let me pick. I know my mom knows she said this. I asked my mom for one of the rings, but my mom said, not yet. She and my dad said my sister will be upset if I get engaged while she is still single and not married. It's not a secret that she's desperate to get married. But that's not my problem. My sister turned 29 in March, and I turned 31 last month. My parents said she'll be upset if I get married a month after her 30th birthday. So I went out today and bought a ring. It was never about money, because I can afford to buy one. I thought it would be special to give my girlfriend a family ring. I'm still proposing on Saturday despite my parents forbidding me to. I'm just pissed off that they asked me to hold off until my sister is married when she isn't even in a relationship. Pisses me off, but I don't want anything to spoil my girlfriend's birthday. Update. 3 days later. I proposed on Saturday like I originally planned to. I proposed with the ring I bought after my parents denied me one of my grandmother's rings. As I said in my original post, it wasn't about money. I could afford to buy a ring. It was about being sentimental because my grandmother always told me I could have one of her rings. I didn't do anything elaborate or public. I proposed over breakfast and she said yes. She called it the best birthday gift she's ever gotten. She had the same idea as me and had suggested we get married on April 29th, our 3rd anniversary, before I even brought it up. So that's what we are doing. We both agreed we don't anything huge or expensive, so we're going to keep it small. It's 1:15 p.m. now, about 28 hours since I proposed. When we announced the news, my sister was upset just like I knew she would be, and my parents were mad I didn't listen to them. I'm 31 and don't rely on my parents for money. I told my parents and sister if they are unhappy they can skip the wedding. It would suck if I didn't have any family there, but I also don't want them to spoil this. I wasn't going to tell my fiancé what went down, but I did once my sister started melting down so she wouldn't be blindsided by any of it. She assured me she loves the ring and thinks my family is wrong. Her family had the exact opposite reaction as mine, and they are all happy for us. So that's it. All is well. My fiancé is currently at work, and it may sound stupid, but I miss her. She told me her coworkers are happy for her, and I know mine will be too when I go in later today. Edit. I also appreciate all the supportive comments in my last post, so thanks for those. Update. 2 years later, my original post and the first update can be found in my comment history, but the gist of it is, my grandmother loved jewelry and always said I could have one of her rings for my future wife. When she passed away, she put in her will that I was to be allowed to pick one out if I was getting engaged. The other hundreds of pieces of jewelry got left to my mom to be eventually passed on to my sister. The rings I was supposed to pick from were not her engagement ring or any of the most expensive jewelry she had. In October of 2022, I asked my mom for a ring because I was going to propose to my then-girlfriend of 2.5 years, but my mom said I could not have one and my dad backed her up. It was because my sister would be upset that I was getting married first. My parents forbid me from proposing. I was 31 years old when this happened, and I live in a different province, so they had no grounds to forbid me from anything. My grandparents on both sides came to Canada from Scotland. There's nothing in either culture that says I am supposed to wait until his younger sister gets married first. I bought a ring and proposed to my wife on her birthday. My parents were angry I didn't listen to them. My sister had an absolute meltdown when she found out about my engagement. I had not told her in advance I was going to propose because I knew she would react badly, even though she was 29 years old at the time. My wife and I got married 6 months after I proposed in April of 2023. It did suck not having any of my own family at my wedding, but I just focused on my wife instead. My update, I went 18 months without speaking to my family, from a couple of weeks after I proposed until earlier this month. I guess my mom had a health scare, and even though she is fine, it got her and my dad worried enough to get back in touch a couple of weeks ago. My wife told me she would support me in whatever I decided. I told my parents we can't go back to the way things were before, and I will not let them talk to my wife right now after the way they acted. My wife and I don't want kids, but if we did, I would keep my parents away from them too. They were surprised I got married without telling them. I said I'm an adult who doesn't need their permission. We are going. Go start with occasional emails for now and go from there. My parents said sister is still upset that I'm married and she's not. She has never apologized for the way she carried on or the way she spoke about my wife. I have no plans to resume contact with her, and I told my parents not to bring it up. Again, thanks to those who left supportive comments in both of my posts. I forgot I had posted here until my wife said something that reminded me of it, and I had some messages asking for an update. Story 2. Mother wants to legally force me to live with her even though I am 39. So my mother, 60, has always had a flair for dramatics and will convince herself of things that are just not true. And of course her brothers, my uncles, think it's hilarious and will get her worked up even more while making fun of her for being so gullible behind her back. I cut her out of my life 4 years ago. We are in Michigan. Someone I trust in the family came to me with concerns that my mother may lie to try to get conservatorship over me. Here is what I know. Her current belief is that I am an unemployed alcoholic living in my car and being taken advantage of by evil men from the political party that she hates. This is not true. I have a place, pay my bills, and had a full-time job last time we spoke. I did leave that job, but I also returned to school full-time on GI Bill, which includes a stipend for living expenses, and found a sweet part-time job in an air-conditioned office on campus. As far as I know, she has no idea I am back in school, and I haven't told anyone in my family, even the ones I trust, what is going on in my life. Problem is that she lost her job of over 20 years during a mass layoff sometime since we last spoke. These new co-workers haven't known her long enough to recognize how she doesn't keep her stories straight or how she flip-flops things around. Basically, she has led everyone she works with to believe I am only in my early mid-20s and haven't quite finished my teenage rebellion phase. And she is a good mommy who just wants to save her baby from the evil political party. They have all been helping her with research and believe because I have a disability rating from the VA, it means I am mentally incompetent. It does not at all mean that. Now, I am positive that none of them actually understand how a VA disability rating actually works. My mother likely lied to them about it. Her new friends believe she can have me declared incompetent, force me to live with her for monitoring, and finally take control of my finances, thus getting control of my disability payments. I have an 80 rating, which is currently just under $2,000 a month. My concern isn't that my mother could prove I am incompetent, but it's that she could use court proceedings to get a hold of my address, school, or workplace. I guess my question is about rules of discovery when it comes to conservatorship cases. Can my mother or any lawyer willing to take her case on actually get a hold of my personal info I don't want her to have? If I provide courts with documents proving my competence and ability to care for myself, do I have the right to ask the court to seal or redact any information or documents with info I don't want her getting? She sabotaged me going to college around 20 years ago, and I don't want to go through that again. I am assuming that the first person I would ever have to deal with would be a social worker, and I want to know if I have any legal recourse to prevent the social worker from sharing my info with my mother. Update. I tried to update the original post and couldn't, and the update comment I left got buried at the bottom. Backstory. Mother wanted me declared incompetent to gain control of me and my veteran disability payments. So I talked with another family member who confirmed what the first said. Everyone is angry because I wasn't supposed to find out what happened because they were handling it. I refused to tell who told me, which is causing more anger, but whatever. So this situation had resolved itself last week. My mother was talking a big game about how she was calling lawyers and adult protective services. After a few days, she started trashing on all lawyers and saying that APS was wasting taxpayer dollars. Apparently, she has forgotten all about this whole mess. Her job got a new summer internet, and my mother is obsessed. Every conversation anyone has with her is about this guy. My poor grandma has to have no less than a 1-hour conversation with my mother every day about this guy. The guy comes from a lot of money, which in the end was what I think she wanted with me. This guy just turned 20, and my mother is 60. Update 8 days later. I was able to squeeze in meeting with the social worker who works at my VA clinic. I gave her the rundown and even showed her my 2 previous posts. She thought it was kind of funny. She informed me that if a state SW were to be informed of a veteran in a need, they would reach out to the VA, and she would likely be a first point of contact. She said that no one from the county or state has contacted her about me yet, but she would make a note. Apparently, the whole Britney Spears conservatorship has made a lot of people think it's super easy to get conservatorships. She said some people think they will get paid a lot of money to do it. Her best guess is that if my mother did call, it was explained to her how complex the process is, and that I would be guided to the VA to receive treatment first, before declaring me incompetent. She did agree with many of the comments that said my mother could find me pretty easily if she really wanted to. The SW used to work at the state office, and while she didn't work at Adult Protective Services, but she had friends and co-workers who did. Money seemed to her to be a really big factor in how hard people fought to get conservatorship. She was surprisingly compassionate towards my mother and said sometimes parents just get worried and worry makes people do stupid things. She said some parents have a hard time adjusting to their children becoming adults and moving out. Sometimes it's because they are losing child support, or they're losing the person who did all the chores, or because they just don't want to face reality that their baby grew up. And these parents will lash out at the world instead of accepting the truth. She told me about a case a friend of hers had where the parents of an adult woman who had moved out couldn't face reality. Her parents had been relying on her to do all the housework and raise her brothers. With her gone, everything fell apart at home. These parents blamed their daughter who had moved out instead of taking responsibility for their own lives. Her friend was so stressed by the case because she got yelled at by the parents almost daily about how the state needed to force their daughter to move back in with them. They never got their wish and almost lost their other kids. A grandparent found out what was happening and stepped up to set the parents straight. Someone had messaged me saying my post was blowing up on social media, and I went looking for it and couldn't find it. They pointed out my family could see it, but I've decided I don't care if they do. So basically, if my mother really wants to find me, she can. But the conservatorship isn't that easy to get, and I know my mother well enough to know she doesn't have the patience or money needed to pursue this anymore. Also, there seems to be a lot of rules surrounding conservatorship that I don't think my mother would have liked following, so I should be good for a while.